My name is Lisa Bassett, and I will be interviewing Helen Kemp.
Yes, that's me.
Good afternoon. So, to start, can you tell me a little bit about your childhood? Where were you born?
Yes, I was born not too far away from here in Percy, and I'll tell you the date, March 31st, and I have to think of when it was, 1918. I'm now 97, no, I'm 96. It's 96 years. I don't want to add a year. And I was born to a very musical family, but not professionals. They were all by ear players. My father was a violinist and a wonderful tenor. And so I've had music all my life in a kind of a folk idiom. They weren't schooled in music, but everyone was able to play piano, violin, other instruments. So I grew up in a very musical, happy childhood. I had one brother and two sisters, and they could play piano much better than I do. And let me see, it was on a farmhouse. We lived in a farm, and very interesting. My father was not the farmer. My uncle was the gentleman farmer for the 18 acres. My father was an entrepreneur, and he was connected with the baseball business in Philadelphia. So on the side of our farmhouse, we had what we called the baseball shop. And through the years, he got to, in our little place, and then it moved to a bigger place, but he was responsible for stitching all of the American and National League baseballs. So that was I got into music and sports very early.
Now, did you play any sports? Did you play softball in the area or baseball?
I skipped the baseball and I went to basketball. That was my thing. I was captain of our basketball team in high school, and my claim to fame in high school was that the girls' basketball team were the Bucksmont champions in 1936. I'm giving you all my dates because when you get to a certain age, you get very proud of your age instead of not telling anybody.
Sounds good to me. So you played the piano and the violin. Did you sing?
I didn't play the violin, but everybody played and sang.
Everyone played and sang. So did you take lessons outside of the house?
Yes. I took piano lessons, and I guess all the children did. My brother became a very good violinist. So, our farmhouse had a lot of music in it.
So where did you end up going to college then?
Now let's start with, I was very much into sports and athletics until my junior year. And then we had a wonderful music teacher, a young man. Honestly, he wasn't so much older than we, because he had graduated from college very young. His name was Edward Moyer, and he was our choir director. And I tried out for a little two-liner in our operetta, and that night he and his accompanist came, knocked on the farmhouse door, and this is wonderful for me because he said, "I would like to hear you sing a little bit more of this part." And he gave me the lead in the operetta, which it turned my life completely around. And then I started, he arranged that I had lessons at Westminster Choir College with Lane Hoda, the wonderful teacher there, the original one. And that started my life on this path, but it was started that somebody was interested. Like, the role of a teacher is so important. A teacher can guide your steps to the next direction,
So do you remember which operetta it was?
I do. The first one was called The Bells of Capistrano. I don't know who wrote it, but it was a very beautiful, kind of romantic. At that period, see, this was in that would be 1934 or 35. That's a long time ago.
Yeah.
Styles were very different,
Mhm.
and choices of music for high schools was except that we did have a wonderful classic background with Bach and Haydn and all that in our choir.
Mhm.
But that's how I got started.
What year was that? Sophomore, junior, senior?
Yes, I started out in my junior year, and then I did the next opera, and the next opera was a light opera called Daniel Boone.
Mhm.
It's wonderful music, but it was, yeah, I know my first B flats,
Mhm.
high B flats I had to sing, and I remember, whoa, that feels really good.
So you took voice lessons at Westminster. Did that make going to Westminster the clear choice for you?
Yes, I took lessons the last part of my senior year in high school.
Mhm.
And Mrs. Hodat marched me right up to the president of the school, Dr. Williamson, and she said, I want this girl to come to Westminster. And so that's what happened. And that's been my life ever since,
Mhm.
because all of my children went there. I taught there, my husband taught there, my daughter taught there.
What are the biggest differences between Westminster now and when it was when you went there as a student?
Well, the emphasis was different because Dr. Williamson, the opening of his whole career was church music.
Mhm.
He was a minister of music. Actually, I think he was responsible mostly for making that term popular, minister of music. He started in Dayton, Ohio, and his choir became world known. He took them to Russia and his church choir. Then his great desire was to move to a metropolitan area where he would be close to Philadelphia and close to New York, where the symphonies are and where the great choral works would be done, and maybe linking up with those. And did it happen? Yes, it happened. And now it is just the growth of that seedling at that time. So it was more church oriented. Most people had weekend churches, and it didn't have the school education as it does now. It has a much wider influence now with in church music, but also in schools, and now in opera, in the light opera or musicals, a much wider emphasis, and it has grown.
So while you were there, did you get to perform with any of the great local city groups?
Yes, I was very fortunate. The first conductor of a great work when we sang in New York was Barbaroli, and then came Toscanini, and then came Stokowski, and you see I'm missing some good ones, but they were with Toscanini. We did a number of times the Verdi Requiem, because the Italian, that's really like Italian opera. And with Stokowski, we did a number of things. The St. John Passion, this is always with choir, like in Baltimore, Washington, Philadelphia, New York, and those places. I think the first Bach that I did was the B minor Mass when I was in my freshman year. It was for the World's Fair that was in New York then, and we did the B minor mass, but also with, I think, the New York Philharmonic, we did something that I remember was with dance, and Martha Graham was the dancer. And she was young then. But we had, that was, and then one of the things I should mention is the big year of 1939, the Westminster Choir took a tour, transcontinental tour, but we went to Hollywood at the time that Gone with the Wind was just opening, and we all got to see one of the openings of Gone with the Wind. But our purpose was to sing for Stokowski in Fantasia. And I don't know how it was used, but our choir, we were there with Dr. Williamson, Stokowski, and Walt Disney entertained us just like we're sitting here in his studio for, Fantasia. At the same time, they were doing Pinocchio. But we got to see that, but that choir, that year was a wonderful experience because maybe because of that Fantasia.
What was it like getting to meet Walt Disney?
He was, so, come on in, folks. Come on, have a seat. Here. And he was very like your favorite uncle. And we were in his studio, and he had it for lunch, and very calm. And as I remember, his cheeks up all the time. He was just, very animated, but not hyper at all. A little laid back. It was a wonderful experience.
So you recorded a sound clip for Fantasia, the movie.
Yes.
What was it like getting to record for a Disney film?
Well, everything had to be done a couple of times, and they would at that time, remember, recording technology was not what it is today. It has come so far. But I remember it as a very, very uplifting experience, and because you know how you are, it would be your age, a couple of years more, that we were there experiencing these with the big eyes, and probably all of us were nervous and wanting to do it all right. It was, that was wonderful. And repetitions with Stokowski, and I remember that the cameras played a lot. He had a wonderful profile, and he liked to show that profile, and the cameras were always over here, so and you can see that in Fantasia.
Do you remember what the name of the piece you recorded for it was?
We did a section of Ave Maria, and there was something else. I can't remember what the other thing, but finally, when they did the film, they did combinations of things. So I could never tell which was what we were singing, what somebody else, because it was a lot of layovers and things like that. But that was very exciting. I have a picture of on the wall over there. I should get it, and you could take a picture of this.
Sounds good.
Do you want to do that?
Sure.
Turn this off a minute.
Okay.
I'm going to say, probably these three have never been photographed together again. This is Dr. Williamson, the founder of Westminster Choir College, the president and our conductor. This is Walt Disney, and you can tell that's the casual, wonderful way he was. And this is Leopold Stokowski. We were with them for, I think, 3 days in Hollywood. So we got to. This picture was taken in Walt Disney's studio, but they wanted us to have vestments on if they wanted to use a choir picture. So.
Are you in that picture somewhere?
Yes, I'm. Over here. Right. I was so glad when I saw this picture that I was in it. And these were the original choir robes. These were a deep red velvet, and the tops were eggshell satin.
Oh.
Very heavy, very warm.
I'd imagine.
Yes. So that's a little history lesson.
Very nice.
On that part.
So after college, did you immediately start working at Westminster, or did you take some time off?
Let me see. I graduated in 1941, and then I took a job immediately in Gastonia, North Carolina. And for 1 year, I was the director of music and their soloist. Because, when I went to Westminster, I just wanted to sing. I didn't care what it was. I wanted to sing. And I got my wish for my lifetime pretty well. But that was my first professional job. And then a Cupid came, and I married John Kemp, who was working on his master's degree at Westminster. And so we married, and then he took a position at the Market Square Presbyterian Church in Harrisburg, where we were several years. And then he wanted to complete his master's, and then we came back to Princeton. And then, soon when he got his degree, we were both given teaching positions there, which was nice.
Now, I know there's a story behind your marriage. Can you tell me a little bit about your wedding day?
Oh, the wedding day. 1942, and we were married in Bristol Chapel at 7:30 in the morning because it was graduation day. And we had to clear out of there. So, yes. And let's see, I remember this soloist that my husband's roommate's name was Paul Knowles, who later on was quite a wonderful operatic tenor. I know he sang with Beverly Sills in the San Francisco Opera, but he had to get up at 6 o'clock to start warming up, so he could be ready to. Tenors don't like to sing at 7:30 in the morning. That was beautiful. And then there was the Hungarian string quartet that was on the faculty. There are 4 of them, and let me see which one played. I think it was Nicholas Harshani played the violin for it, and Westminster Choir sang from the balcony. So that was a big event.
I could imagine. So can you tell me a little bit about your job at Westminster, what you did?
At Westminster, yes. I started right on with the voice faculty, and that's where I learned a lot about teaching, because I had been directing a lot, and a lot of solo work, but I love teaching. I taught a voice class. All the freshmen had to take one voice class. I had sopranos, and I remember one scary thing. I was a new teacher, of course, and I was teaching them an aria from Messiah, I think, and someone walked in, and it was Robert Shaw, and he was very young at that time. He was visiting around at Westminster. He and Dr. Williamson had some ongoings together, but things like that happened. At that time, I didn't even know who he was. And I wondered who this stranger, young, good-looking guy came in. And it was Robert Shaw. But then also I had a full schedule of sopranos and altos. So, and I still hear from a lot of them. I have a lot of them on this.
Did you have any particularly famous students who went on to big fame or notability?
Well, mostly when I came back for the second time. When we came back here after going to Oklahoma City and Dallas, and then we came back, and my husband was the chair for the church music department, and I was on the voice faculty, and that's where I got into children's choir work, because we established the course there for the children's choirs. Now where were we? I got off.
Notable students.
Oh, yes. Well, I didn't teach her there, but I taught her at home. I would say Julia Kemp.
Who would be your daughter, yes.
But also I had Jenny Kelly, who had quite a career in Europe before she married the conductor, operatic conductor, and now she is the president of the Lyric Opera Company European, and she does a great deal. She's in touch with me all the time. Virginia Babikin was another one. Oh, I'd have to go back to think. I had quite a few.
Quite a few?
Uh-huh.
So you said you went away from Westminster for a while and you were in Oklahoma and Dallas. What did you do while you were there?
In Oklahoma City, we went to the First Presbyterian Church in Oklahoma City. At that time it was an old downtown church. And it was a magical place because lots of things had never been done chorally, so we could be the initiator of a lot of things. And then that's when we developed our school of choirs. And that's when I learned about children's voices, because I had them all the way from we even had a crier choir. And we would go to, when there was a new baby born in church, we would go and present this little really very nice little certificate. You are now a member of the crier choir. And so that got parents interested. And then we started with kindergarten and all the way through youth choirs. And I taught a lot of people there. I would say Jacqueline Pierce, who started in our choirs, and now she is a big name in New York because she, let me see, I don't know what they call them. If an orchestra comes into New York and they want to have a chorus, they get in touch with Jacqueline, and she provides there's a name for it. And if she sees it, she say, "Mama Helen, why didn't you remember that?" But let me see, where were we?
What you were doing in Oklahoma and Texas.
Oh, that's where I learned about. I did most of my solo work, all the oratorios, and I sang with the Oklahoma Symphony, and that was when I wore many hats. I could be a soloist, I did my children, and I might say that by that time, let me see, when we went to Oklahoma City, I had 3 children, Julia, John, and Michael. And by the time we were in Oklahoma City for a number of years, we had 2 extras, Peggy and Kathy. And so all of them at one time did some work at Westminster.
So once you were done there, did the offer for your husband to become the chair bring you back to Westminster, or did you both want to come back?
After 20 years in Oklahoma City, and we had, oh, by the way, there was a new church was built, a magnificent sanctuary with 4 organs. We have a pipe organ in the sanctuary and the chapel, and then there was artiste in the great hall, and a little organ in a rehearsal room.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a wonderful music place in our new sanctuary, and we were there a number of years. And Choristers Guild at that time needed an executor director, and they asked my husband if he would come, and the two of us would work with the publishing of anthems.
Mm-hmm.
This was for children and youth choirs, and we did that for 4 years. And then Dr. Robinson came and asked John if he would come and be the chair of the church music department, and I would be with faculty, so the voice faculty. So that's how we got back here, full circle.
You were one of the founding members, I believe, of the Choristers Guild.
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit about what that was exactly?
There was a woman, very visionary woman. Her name was Ruth Jacobs, and she saw the great need for training of volunteers, because many of the smaller churches could not hire a full-time music person. But she had this idea that these volunteers were usually good pianists or singers, but didn't have the training for teaching music and vocalism for children. So that she started this with some of the top church musicians of the day. She rounded them up, and it's a really, and they established the mission statement, and it is still a wonderful thing today. It's grown in many ways, just like Westminster has grown, and it's serving a larger purpose than at the beginning, because now they have this wonderful institute where people can come for 2 weeks for a 3-year period in the summer. They have the best of theologians and the best of choral people working with a rather small number, I'd say 30, in this course at the Institute. So it has really expanded and improved in many ways. Wonderful organization.
You said that that's what you started working with children's choirs.
Yes.
What led you to working with that age level in specific?
Well, my biggest, what I learned, it was all based on singing. All that I did, my conducting, everything was based on having had good vocal training. And that's all I knew when I started working with children's choirs, because there were no courses at that time. I did do a lot of research on English boy choirs and read all that I could on that. But American singing is a little different than the English boy choir, although I tried really to use the best vocal techniques I could with the children. But that's where it started, and having every day working with children's choirs of different ages, and at the same time working with youth and young singers. That was my Oklahoma days. That was really my university of where I learned as I was going.
What were some of the biggest challenges you found while working with the children's choir?
Well, the first thing, let me see, what would I say? Because at the beginning, just getting parents to be involved, as it wasn't babysitting. This is education, music education, church, it was a higher goal. And we had to first sell the idea to parents that this was more than an extra activity. And over the years, I think that became very evident. And then traditionally, parents wanted their children to be part of this. And then also finding wonderful materials. At the beginning, that was quite a problem. We had to create a lot of our own, either by writing it or, doing. That's when the Chorus Through Skills started publishing materials that could be used by a wide spectrum of abilities.
From that time working with them, do you have any pieces that you think every children's choir should perform at some point?
Oh, let me see. Well, it has expanded so now. I know so many community choirs that are singing great works. The last 20 years, that material has just expanded. So there's so much more to choose from. Let me see. I think every choir ought to introduce some of the great composers, like a Handel and a Bach, but at the level that children can sing it. Also, now we have some wonderful young composers who are writing for the day, for now, and finding great texts. I would advise for anybody working with any choirs to choose not first for the music, but look at the text and see what poetry is going into these young minds. Great poetry in simple, wonderful arrangements. That's what goes into a child's intellect, I think.
Aside from picking the music based on the poetry, do you have any other advice for someone who might be starting a children's choir?
Yes, I think they should be prepared they should check their own musicianship. And sometimes I have wonderful people who are innately able to work with children, and I look for that. And then say, oh, you need to work on your own vocalism. You have to know about the voice. That's the instrument. It's not the violin, it's not the flute, it's the voice. You have to know about that. And there's no excuse now. There's so many wonderful opportunities for leaders of choirs, even the volunteers, to get education and get materials that they can use. It's exciting to know how much is available.
You have one token phrase that everybody seems to know about you. Body, mind, spirit, voice. It takes a whole person to sing and rejoice.
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit about that, where it came from, what it means to you?
Well, that came over many years of teaching. I remember the first time at the four, I always knew there is a physical aspect to your body, the physical aspect, but also there's the intellect, the mental, like pitch. It depends on a thought process and discipline of the mind. That's essential for you, for any singer, the physical and the mental. And then there's this added thing of expression. Of able to communicate through singing. That I call spirit.
Mm-hmm.
It's the involving the communicating the thought. It's more than just knowing about the vocal equipment, although that's important.
Mm-hmm.
It's more than just the mental knowing how it works. It's how you express it. And then the singing. Then that can be on a very simple level. I use it with children all the time. So that their whole body is a part of their instrument.
Mm-hmm.
But I use it with my senior singers that I had here for a while, who were 70 and 80 years old. The same thing can emerge because it is physical, mental, spiritual, that means expression, and vocal, and it has to go together. So that, it just happened to make a little rhyme because I can teach that to children and they get the idea of it.
So you ran a choir here for a while at the Yorktown at Manor.
Yes.
Manor at Yorktown.
Right.
Can you tell me a little bit about that and what it's like working with the other
when
end
I
of the spectrum?
came here, I was 86. When I came to the Manor, I thought, oh, I'm just going to relax now, and I'll be a listener and a watcher and an enjoyer, and I won't do the work. Well, I was here about a couple of months, and I heard they had this little group of singers. I think there were 11, but they didn't have an accompanist, and some of them really wanted to sing. So they came and asked me, would you sing in this group? And I thought, I don't think that would be, but I did. I sang for the first time. And then something happened to the person that just would come in every 2 weeks. And they asked me if I would take the choir. Well, I said, only if you will get a very good accompanist, because I am not a pianist and I will not work without. And so we did have this. Would you want to see a picture of some of those singers? They're all in their 70s, 80s, some approaching 90s, and these are the Manor singers. And we would give, I had them for 9 years. Of course, with that age group, they change every year. We lose a few, and some have to go to assisted living, all sorts of. But I know this one wonderful alto I had. She developed a serious cancer. She loved singing. She took her music with her when they were operating on her the last time. And she said to the surgeon, now I want you to get me out of here in 2 weeks. I've got to sing a concert. And I thought that was the most beautiful thing. Sadly, she never made it. But I am so happy that she could sing and have something to look forward to for that. And then sometimes we took funny pictures. Like there was a movie that was made kind of funny about the senior singers, and one of their pictures was up like this, So I made them do that one time. This was my 80-year-olds trying to look like that movie.
So is the other lady in the jacket, because that one's you, is
That's
that
it.
your accompanist then? A hired accompanist?
Yes, the other one, where is she?
The other one in the jacket's hiding back here. You could see her more in the other picture.
Oh, yes.
She was
I
right
have
there.
2 wonderful accompanists. And this was the last one. And yeah, that made it. We could be a team. And that was so. But it was a perfect joy. I did tell you we did 18 or 16 concerts with all kinds of music, and Then the last thing we did was a cabaret. They liked that. That was fun.
Did they have like a favorite style to sing? Did you find?
Yes. The ones that they could memorize. I would always have them memorize something because memory is very hard when you're that old. Walk in the Light, Andre Thomas. They loved that one. A couple of them were spirituals. And my son-in-law, Jim Riddle, he's a jazz musician, did one arrangement for them of 2 songs about rain. And they adored it. And that was difficult with a jazz arrangement. They really loved that piece. So they did and then we had Bach, and we did some Handel, and we did, things that were a little bit difficult. They also loved things from the musicals, but I always made them do a wide variety so that I could work well with their voices.
Were they trained singers, or were some of them singing for the first time?
Some of them for the first time. Most of them did not read music. That's why when they had so much joy of learning, that's my other thing about being a music educator. The several that could read music were such a help. I was thinking, well, now, if in education they all could read music, it would be, wow, they would enjoy this part of their life so much as music lovers.
Did you work on literacy with them, or how did you address those who didn't know how to read music?
Well, many people learn by doing, and we would make them count, and and it helped me a lot to have those numbers that could help a section. And then people are so musical, they can catch it in their ears, but then it shouldn't be limited. It should be that they could help themselves. And it's a reason for teachers to put music on the top priority because it means so much to them at this age, and people are living a lot longer. They have a lot of years to use to do things that they love, and so if they're prepared for it, they can enjoy it more.
If you had to pick today, would you say you'd prefer to work with an older choir or with the children's choir?
Oh, I would say children, because they make me stay youthful.
Very nice.
So,
every year Westminster Choir College has a Kemp Symposium. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
When my husband died, there was a group of students who got together and said, we want to create an endowment for church music that could be used each year for something for a community outreach that the choir college can affect some of the choir directors, and making it a practical, useful help. And that's how that started. It started with the students at Westminster, and I'm hoping that will keep on. I hope that when I pass on, I want to be a part of that too. So,
what would it look like to a person who goes to attend this symposium? What kind of day should they be expecting?
Well, we've tried to reach out with many different aspects. We've had a children's choir specialist. We've had drama, musicals with the children. We've had the composer and the lyric writers. We've had worship leaders. We've had conductors of who helped. If you're having a small orchestra, how you can work with the orchestra for the first time. We've tried to have Oh, and then we had John Feierabend, who is a specialist in working with young children, very young children. He was here, I think, 2 years ago. And then we've had guest conductors, and we try to make it a very variety. This year we're having Michael Hahn, who is the head of the church music department at Perkins and Dallas, the SMU, Southern Methodist. He's also a theologian whose specialty is world music. That will be his emphasis. You know, the in music of the church worldwide, and that'll be a wonderful one.
About when during the year does the Kemp Symposium take place?
When? This year?
Sure.
In October.
October.
We usually have it like the second week in October. Uh-huh.
Now, how much do you get to contribute to the Kemp Symposium? Because I know you and your children are involved in it, so how much do you contribute to the forming of the day?
Now, Scott Hurrell has been a wonderful help on that, because through the outreach, what do you call that?
Student continuing education department?
Yes, he does all the workshops and things. He has helped a great deal to do the organizational part, and my daughter Kathy has been involved, always designing the hymn festival. We have ended most of them with the hymn festival. We've chosen a wonderful organist for that. So it's been, I have been involved in all of them, planning it, but it's not a family thing. Excuse me, it's not a family. We're not in charge of doing it, but I help to plan it.
And you conduct the last piece every year. How do you choose which piece you're going to do that year? Do you choose which piece you're going to do that year?
You mean for the...
At the end of the symposium, you conduct the last closing.
Yes, well, I've always done the hymn festival. That we started out with that, and that was fun, but now I can't do the whole thing anymore, so I usually choose what I would like to end with. Usually a wonderful hymn that is very uplifting, and one that I'll tell you a little secret. Sometimes I choose that because I know how wonderful it's going to sound with Westminster people there, and I choose a hymn that's going to sound great, and I get to listen to it.
So do you recommend the symposium just for Westminster students, for just choral or church musicians and teachers,
well,
or for
everything,
everybody?
you know, like John Feierabend, he is an educator, internationally known. So we tried to make it a bigger purpose. Church musicians, teachers, even clergy have come into it, but it's we try to make it wide, that we can enjoy each other's expertise. And I hope that the students would take advantage of it, because they have been a big help in the singing, and Tom Shelton has been a wonderful help to me last year especially, and involving a lot of students in that. I appreciate it a lot.
So are you still involved in anything musical today outside of the symposium? You said your choir isn't going anymore, so do you do anything else?
I have gotten to Facebook and internet is wonderful, because there are many people that write to me, Mrs. Kemp, this is my situation. And they tell me about their needs for their choir and so forth, or where they can get information. So that I've been having a lot of fun, just being useful when people, or I'm doing I've had time now to do more composing, and I've really enjoyed. I have 2 commissions coming up that I have to get busy on again.
If someone were interested in getting some of your compositions, where would they be able to purchase them?
Let's see. Well, Choristers Guild, Augsburg Press, Concordia. They're the 3 main ones because they were some related to church, but also I've done some for schools now too.
Wonderful.
No, I don't do that much, but I mean I don't do this every day, but I enjoy very much when I can.
Sounds good. Well, thank you very much for sitting down and talking to me.
Lisa, you had the questions so well prepared that made it very easy for me.